So for this video, we're going to learn how to cut viewfinders. You've got your standard viewfinder with just a hole in the middle of a mat. And then you've got this one. It's a little more complicated, but it's pretty useful, pretty easy to make still. It's basically just the other viewfinder that I had, but you cut this part off, and now you can actually make this adjustable. So that way you can have different sized picture planes. Use these clips to pop them on there. You can change these to all different sizes. Alright? So the first thing you want to do is obviously cut the rectangle. Now please try to cut a corner out. I've seen people try to cut an 8x10 out of the center of a mat. That's kind of silly because then you got so much waste around it. Cut it out of the corner. I'm not going to do this whole part because I have some extra ones over here, but all you would do is, traditionally they're usually around 8x10 because it's just easy to pop in your book bag to keep handy. So 8. Okay. By 10. And if you've already watched the mat cutting video, you should know how to do this. Okay, so then I would cut that out, which would give me this. Okay. Now one thing that you do want to have when you're cutting the center out of this is you want something that is similar to the actual outside shape of this. So you don't want one that's real long or real short or anything like that. If you're having a stationary one where this is the center is going to stay, intact, like this, not this one. You want this shape here to be the exact same shape as this one. You don't want it wider or longer or anything like that. All right. So in order to do that, you take this shape, which is an 8x10, and just cut it in half. So half of 8x10 would be a 4x5. So we also want that centered. So 4 inches would be this way. This is 8 inches, so minus 4 inches would be 4. So there's going to be 4 inches left over, 2 on each side. So from this, measure 2 inches over, and then 2 inches over from this side. Again, make your second mark. You don't want to try to eyeball this. You want everything nice and straight. So 2 inches, 2 inches. And that doesn't look right for some reason. Yeah. It's okay. If it's a little off, it's not a huge deal. Okay? And then, now you don't want to measure 2 inches on the side because remember we need it to be 4x5. So since this is 10 inches long, subtract the 5 that's going to come out of the center, you're going to have 5 inches left over. That means 2.5 for the top, 2.5 for the bottom. From this we're going to go 2.5. 2.5. Okay. That. What you got is that's what you're going to cut out of the center. Remember, we always want to cut on the back side, not on the front side. With this, it almost doesn't matter because it is scrap. It's just a viewfinder. But this is the same exact way that you would cut mat for a painting. So if this image, if we did an illustration that was 4x5, we would cut the center out of this and we could put this over the top of our illustration, showing the illustration, not all the sidebars. Right? So in that case, you would not draw on the front, you would draw on the back and cut everything out of the back, so that way when you place this over the top of your illustration, you didn't see all the register marks that you were drawing in the back. Okay? So in order to cut this, same way as we cut mat normally, except for you're not going to cut all the way through, you're obviously going to stop at this line. Again, score the first one, you don't have to bear all the way down through it. So cut to there. And 2 or 3 good cuts. Remember, sharp blades are really going to help with this. You got to make sure to change your blade often. Otherwise, you're just going to be ripping apart your mats, and it's just going to look horrible. You want really nice clean cuts. You want your artwork to stand out, not the mat itself. Again, with this, it's just a viewfinder, so it's not crucial that you get it exactly perfect. This is a good practice for when you go ahead to mat your illustrations, is to make a viewfinder first. Okay, so there's 3 sides cut. Notice I always make a couple cuts again, score the first one, bear down on the second and third, and this should pop right out. Be careful if this ever hangs like this. Basically just means that I didn't cut all the way to one corner. With this, I could just rip. You got to be careful that you don't rip some of the actual black paper off, especially when you're matting for an illustration, because that will look unsightly. But for this, we'll just pop that off. You can actually see, if I can get it up a little closer, you can see right here there is a little kind of burr of paper that kind of looks bad for illustration, but for this purpose it's fine. Okay? So that's the first one. Now to make the second kind, you can make this and you can get a lot of use out of this. The second kind gives you a little bit more versatility. All you have to do is cut 2 L shapes. So right from this same exact style, you cut this side, okay, and then you cut this one. Nope, this one. Want the L to go all the way down. It doesn't really matter, but making them both the same helps a little bit. Okay? Block it over, right? And so what that gives you is 2 L pieces. And again, you can clip these at any size. This is really good for landscapes, because as we look into the distance, we want to just crop a little piece of the landscape. So having a big thing like this, it might be too large for us. We want to crop way down. So we could do something like this, a little more landscape or portrait view. Okay? So, whichever one you want. Now the way to use this, again, obviously you can clip these together at whatever size you feel like. Okay? Now what you have to do is actually get this exact proportion onto your paper. And in order to do that, there's a little trick. All you do is trace 2 sides of your the hole that you made. Take just a scrap piece, if you have it with you, and draw from corner to corner. Okay? So this is what you're going to end up with. I obviously want to do this a little bit lighter than what I'm doing. I'm just doing this for demonstration purpose. I'm making it a little darker so you can see. But so you have 2 corners, and then you have a dividing line. Now all you have to do is extend that and make it as large as you want on your piece of paper. If you're doing small thumbnails, you could keep it that small. But if I wanted to do larger pieces from that little viewfinder, all I do is extend this straight line up. This one over. And the diagonal over. Okay? Now wherever I make, however big I want this, wherever I make the top, that is going to meet the diagonal. And that's going to meet the diagonal. So this rectangle right here is an exact copy of this rectangle. There, you can see it. Okay? So that's how you get a similar composition from this to this. Because if you're using this as your viewfinder and you have this kind of a composition that you're looking at, it's not going to work to draw it in something like that. They're the wrong size. They're the wrong shape. So you got to make sure that you transfer this shape onto your paper. You can make it slightly larger, slightly smaller if you need to, but it's got to be the exact same shape. All right? With the stationary one, the reason we want to make it the same as the outside, the inside the same as the outside, is because you can do one of two things. When you're sketching, you can trace the inside, and you can have the exact size and shape of your viewfinder, but also, if you wanted to, you can make it slightly larger by tracing the outside and that outside shape is the exact same shape as well.